Bill, thanks so much for being with us. You're going to be doing this virtual thing with Northern Plains Resource Council Monday called Turning the Corner on Climate Change. What's that conversation? What are you bringing to the table there?
Well, I mean, it's really at this point, there's not much subtlety left in this in this issue. The two things that are going on are, one, the planet is really starting to burn up, and all you need to do is, stick your nose out the window and take a good whiff, and you get the smell of wildfire smoke, across the western U.S. And the second thing that's going on is wind power and solar power are getting cheaper pretty much by the hour. And they're now at the point where they're the cheapest way to generate electricity on planet Earth. And we're learning to use electricity for pretty much everything. I mean, California, the center of car culture, just announced that the internal combustion engine is a dodo by 2035, So on the one hand, we have to change. And on the other hand, we can change. So I guess that's the good news.
And what do you say to the people that say, "Oh, the wildfires, it's just the Democrats are using this as a political wedge"? That they're just, the naysayers seem to be pounding the drum as well.
I mean, you got to be at this point pretty politically paranoid not to. I mean, I don't think the Democrats are the problem. I'm afraid it's physics and chemistry that are at issue here. I mean, we had the highest recorded temperature ever measured on our planet, reliably measured in August in California, 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It was 120 degrees in San Luis Obispo, which is right on the ocean. So it didn't come as any big surprise 2 weeks later when most of California, when the 5 of the 10 largest wildfires in California history were burning simultaneously. I mean, that's what happens. If it gets really hot, everything dries out and then it can catch on fire. I've lived in the woods my whole life, so that much I know about forests.
The Energy Secretary is coming to Billings tomorrow and visiting Colstrip, one of the biggest carbon polluters in the country. He doesn't believe that humans are causing climate change and global warming. What's your message to him? How should we put this in perspective? As I know he's coming here because we have a real key Senate race, but beyond the politics, what do you say to him?
Well, I mean, it might be a good idea while he was there to stop by Missoula for a visit and talk to any of the professors at the university, any of the scientists who look at this. Climate change, the idea that we're warming up the planet is not a controversial idea, except in one political party, in one country in this world. And even there, I mean, look, things are starting to shift. You saw the former governor of Montana today saying that he wasn't going to vote for Donald Trump. There's a lot of people who aren't going to vote for him, and some of them aren't going to vote for him because they have come to realize that he doesn't take science seriously. It's time to take science seriously. It's time, whether you're dealing with pandemic disease or whether you're dealing with, out of control environmental problems. You don't gain anything unless you happen to own a coal mine someplace by just burying your head in the sand.
Of course, the concern here is jobs. And when we, in this transition, if we are going, and we have lots of solar and wind on the drawing board, but
so the good news at a place like Colstrip is, I mean, there's jobs that need to be done. Like, they've got a big problem with leaking coal ash, and they have for years, and they haven't taken care of it, but there's a plan now to take care of it, and it would provide a lot of good jobs. We know that across the Western United States, there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of abandoned oil and gas wells that need to be capped and cleaned up. We also know that there's great work to be done in the clean energy sector. I just did a piece for the New Yorker about North Dakota oil field workers converting to wind turbine technicians and describing the jobs as having overlapping skill sets, but in other ways being much better jobs, ones that are not as hard on your body and more likely to provide a lifetime instead of the kind of boom bust fossil fuel economy that we've gotten used to.
I saw your interview on 60 Minutes where just to boil it down, the pandemic is presenting an opportunity here with the pollution and the pictures from Beijing that were just incredible.
It's not so much that the pandemic represents an opportunity. I mean, it's true that everybody stopped flying and driving. But what was interesting was emissions only went down 7, 8, 9% or something, which is a reminder that really this isn't about individual choices at bottom. What it's about is a system that's hardwired at the moment to burn coal and gas and oil. And we've got to reach into that system and yank out the coal and gas and oil and put in insulation and efficiency and sun and wind. Happily, those things are now cheap. And so we can do it, and we can do it fast. I think what the pandemic really reminds us is physical reality is real. You know, it doesn't matter if the president gets up and says that the pandemic's a hoax. If the microbe says wear masks, then wear masks, you know. And it also reminds us that social solidarity is important. Look, you know, we spent a long time listening to people sort of parrot Ronald Reagan and go around saying, well, the government's not the solution, the government's the problem. You know, look, Reagan used to say the 9 scariest words in the English language were, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Ha ha ha. I mean, clearly scarier sentences are things like, we've run out of ventilators, or the hillside behind your house just caught on fire, okay? And you can't solve those things, you know, with market forces. You solve them by building coalitions of human beings, what we call governments, that are competent enough and strong enough to do jobs that we have to do together, not by ourselves.
Final question. I know your time is short. With this election and the clock ticking, we used to have good environmental laws on the books. Some of them have been watered down and brushed aside. But how important is this election to turn the corner?
Look, the thing about climate change is it's a timed test. And if we don't solve it soon, we won't ever solve it. It's not like other political problems in that way, because you go past tipping points from which there's no return. Once the Arctic's all melted, there's no plan for freezing it again, you know? So I think that this is a critically important election, and I think we need leadership from all over the country, including from those places that truly value public lands, that truly value the outdoors, that truly understand that nature is somewhat, you know, a force we need to work with. And you know, the Northern Plains are that place in spades.